Hi everyone and welcome to Plant Structure and Plant Transport. This is in paper 1 of AQA. It is also in Edexcel and OCR, so it's in all of the exam boards. And it's really important that you know this because people forget to revise this. They go, oh, I know that, that's fine. So let's have a look at what we're talking about. We've got to look at the leaf and the different parts of the leaf. And then we've got to look at how substances get round and about the plant, which way they go, why they go that way, and also the structure of the vessels that they go in. So let's start with structure of a leaf. So this is something you do kind of when you're probably in year 4 or 5, and then you do again in year 7. But a lot of people forget to revise it. So we've got these layers and these things here in the leaf. Have a go, pause the video and see how many of these you can remember the names of. Okay, so pause now. Right, well done. So hopefully you got some of these. So let's have a look at the names of some of these. We're going to start with number 1. And if I can get my pen working today, let's have a look. Yes, I can. Hooray. Right, waxy cuticle. And we'll look at what these do in a minute. Let's just name them first. Number 2, upper epidermis. Now epidermis just means like the outer layer, so you've got an upper and a lower. We'll find the lower one in a minute. Number 3, palisade layer or palisade cells. Okay, we're going to add to this in a minute. Number 4, that is the one with the gaps in that layer, so that is spongy mesophyll. You can just say the mesophyll layer and that's fine, but spongy because it's got gaps in, so layer or cells. Number 5, now this is showing us the phloem and the xylem. It's a bit difficult to see actually which one it's pointing to, so we're going to put phloem and xylem, and you'll always recognize those because they will be going horizontally across the leaf. And number 6 is pointing to the hole. Now the actual hole is called the stomata. But these little cells around the side, these ones here, and these ones here, they actually guard the stomata, if you like, and are in control of what goes in and out. So we'll label those as well. Guard cells. Now that is one of the top asked questions, guard cells. Right, now sometimes you get a 6 marker on leaf structure, and you need to be able to label some layers, but you also need to be able to say why they're specialised, what they do. So let's just have a quick look at those. So let's go back to our waxy cuticle. So this is that shiny layer on the top of the leaf. Some plants have really shiny layer. For example, holly, that is really shiny if you've ever seen that. It's for protection, but it is also so the water runs off and runs to the roots. And that's obviously where the water goes into the plant, into the roots. So it's kind of a double thing, that one. The upper epidermis, that's the top layer. Now what's special about the upper epidermis is it's actually see-through. And the reason it's see-through is because the light has to get to these palisade cells underneath to photosynthesize. And if it wasn't see-through, the light wouldn't be able to get through. So it's see-through or clear, you could say clear if you prefer. Now the palisade cells, so these ones that are upright here, you can't see in this diagram, but they have loads of chloroplasts because this is where the most photosynthesis takes place. And the reason they are upright like this is so more cells can fit in and get energy from the sun here for photosynthesis. If they were long ways, you wouldn't have so many cells. So the spongy mesophyll layer has got gaps in it. Can you see these gaps? And that is so oxygen and carbon dioxide can diffuse in and out. So obviously, depending on what time of day it is, we'll have different gases going in and out. Phloem, xylem. Now we're going to look at these in detail in a minute. These are involved in transport, and we'll have a look at those in detail, what they're made of and what they do. And the stomata, so the stomata, these holes, gases enter and leave the leaf. Which you probably knew, that's oxygen and carbon dioxide. But also it's where water leaves the plant. Now obviously it doesn't go in the stomata, it goes in the roots, but this is where water leaves the plant. Okay, now if you had a 6 marker about, excuse me, my glass has fallen off, about the structure of the leaf, if you said that, that's more than 6 marks. So make sure you know the structure of a leaf. It does come up a lot, or part of it, bits of it. Sometimes it's a 6 mark. Right then, so let's go on to the next one. Hopefully we've all got that sorted. Now, something for you to do here. So it's a bit elongated. However, water, let's think about water going into the leaf. That's this side. Sorry, not into the leaf, into the root hair cell. So water goes into the root hair cell, which is way down in the roots, and they are specialized cells. You can probably see that. They've got everything a cell has, but they have this elongated bit here. And that is to increase the surface area. Okay, because the more of these they have, the more surface area. And this one here is about water. And this one here is about ions. Okay, so we're talking about water going into the root hair cell, going into the plant. Now, what is that process of water moving from one place to another? It begins with O, osmosis. Good, well done. So let's have a look up here on this top line. Root hair cells absorb water by osmosis. And mineral ions by, now there's probably a clue here because there's 2 words. So it's not diffusion, because that's 1 word. So do we know what it is? Excellent, active transport. And we'll look at why that is in a minute. And remember, active transport needs energy. The projection from the root hair give a 1, 2, 3 large surface area for absorption. Okay, so let's do the water one first. Now, I'm really hoping you know what osmosis is and where it's moving, and we're talking about movement of water. There is, or there will be, just going to move me out the way for a second. There's a separate video on the osmosis and the osmosis practical, which will be coming out next week. So if you're not sure on osmosis, you can watch that one. But let's have a look. Water is absorbed into the root hair cell by osmosis. Now, have a go at this next bit. If you want to pause me, that's absolutely fine, and have a little go. Or if you just want to watch, that's fine too. Water moves from a something area, high water concentration, to a something area, low water concentration. It does. Water moves from high to low concentration. Now what they want here is another word for something that's got lots of water in it. They want dilute. A dilute area, like think of your orange squash or whatever squash you drink. When it's dilute, it's got loads of water in it. And then the word for a low water concentration, concentrated. I'm sure you've all seen those squashes that are concentrated, that are like quadruple strength or something. That's concentrated. It is then transported to the something and transported up the something. So water, as we know and learnt on the last slide, we know it goes in the roots, but it leaves via the leaf. So it has to go up the roots and transported to the leaf. It can only go one way, water, and we'll look at why that is in a minute. Right, mineral ions. Now, mineral ions are often dissolved in the water when they're moving around the plant, but they get in by active transport, which means there's going to be, so do some dots, less mineral ions on the outside of our root hair cell and lots inside. Now that means that our mineral ions will have to move in by active transport because they're going low concentration here to high concentration here. They're going against the concentration gradient. So that's low and that's high. So again, if you want to pause me and have a go at this, that's absolutely fine. If you want to work through it with me, that's fine too. So mineral ions are absorbed into the root hair cell by active transport. Minerals are transported from somewhere or something concentration to something concentration against the something something. So if we look at our diagram, they are going from low to high concentration against the concentration gradient. Okay, this requires energy. Now if you ever mention active transport in a question, mention energy from somewhere. So what process do you think this might be here? What process produces energy? Good, good, good. Respiration, thank you. Minerals are then transported along the something in the something. Okay, now they go in the xylem vessels too, but they are in water. So once they're in the root hair cell, up here, they'll be dissolved in the water and move with the water wherever the water goes. Okay, well, excuse me, well done if you got those, that's fantastic. So let's have a look at the next slide, see what's coming up now. Right, we've got phloem and we've got xylem. Now I'm just going to move me down out the way, down here. So one of these transports water, one of these transports food, but we don't like to say food, it's sugars, okay? So let's look at the structure of phloem first. Now phloem pH here, oops, sorry, there you go, phloem. Now phloem transports, it says sugar. Okay, now you can say sugar, but if you're Edexcel, you need to say sucrose, because that is a type of sugar and it's a specific type. Everyone else can say sugar. Right, let's have a look at these. So these run from anywhere in the plant to anywhere in the plant. They can go up, they can go across, they can go along. Because if you think any sugar that's made in photosynthesis might need to go somewhere else. So sugar's made in the leaves, so it might need to go to the roots. It might need to go to the stem. It might need to go to another leaf, depending on where it needs it. So sugars can go up and down the phloem. Now, often you get asked the differences or similarities between these two. Now this one, phloem are made of living cells. So each one of these is a living cell. And then in between these cells here, we've got, we've got little holes. Sometimes these are called, where can I write it? I'll write it here. Sieve plates, like a sieve. Okay, so there's one there. A sieve plate. Just be aware it's small holes. Now phloem, they transport food, dissolved sugars, made in the leaves to the rest of the plant in both directions. Okay, so they can go up, down, either direction. And the movement of sugars is called translocation. Now, trans just means across, like transatlantic. And location means a different part of the leaf. So it's being moved to a different part of the leaf. That's what that word literally means. But that one is movement of sugars. Now, xylem, on the other hand, if we have a look, are made of dead cells. And those dead cells, what happens is there's a line of cells. They die, the outside gets hard, and that's a material called lignin. And then the middles disappear. So we've got this lovely xylem tube or xylem vessel. Now, how can you remember which carries water and which carries sugars? I've got a silly little way, but I'm going to show you. Xylem carries water because W and X are next to each other in the alphabet. So if you remember that, W and X are next to each other, water is xylem. Okay. Now, xylem, which is what we're talking about here, xylem vessels, can only carry water up. They cannot carry water down. So it goes from the roots down here up to the leaves, and it doesn't go anywhere else. It doesn't branch off. It's just one long tube, a bit like a straw. Okay. Now this one is called, here we go, transpiration. So again, trans, and then transpiration. So you probably think of some other words that have got that on the end. Perspiration, evaporation. Okay, so this bit means evaporating, and we'll look at why we use that. That's what happens when they get to the stomata right at the end. So we've got translocation for phloem, transpiration for xylem. And you need to know the similarities of these and the differences, okay, because sometimes it comes up. Can come up as a 6 marker, sometimes less marks, just depending. Right, the next slide is basically summarising the differences. So xylem on this side, one direction only, carries water and minerals, no end walls between cells, and thick walls stiffened with lignin. That's xylem. And phloem carries water and food. Remember, sugars is better. Cells have end walls with perforations or sieve plates, and it can travel 2 different ways. So this is a summary of the last slide, if you like. Now I've explained it all. So if you'd like to pause that and jot them down, that's absolutely fine. If not, let's move on. Okay, let's move on then to the next one. Oh, doesn't seem to be clicking. There we go. So sometimes we get 3 or 4 markers. Describe the movement of water from the root hair cell of a plant to leaving the leaf. Okay. Now, in this particular question, there are about 10 different marking points. So as long as we get some keywords in there, we'll be okay. So just take a minute, jot down any keywords you think we might need in this answer. Okay. Pause me now and have a little go. Right, hopefully you've had a go at doing some keywords. So I'm going to move me back over to my corner and let's have a think about these keywords. So let's start down at the roots. Now, describe the movement of water from the root hair cell. So it's already in the root hair cell, we will assume. And we are going to need to mention it moves up, up the xylem. That's our first keyword. Oh, that's our first keyword. Xylem vessel or xylem tube. Okay. And it moves in one direction, so it goes up. Not one direction, the pop band. Okay. And then it's going to get to the leaf. And it's going to leave via the stomata. So these are just ideas of keywords. I'll give you the actual ones in a minute. Okay. And it leaves the stomata by evaporation. So our keywords for the four: xylem vessel, One Direction, not Harry Styles, stomata. Now you can have evaporation from leaf, or because it's not in the question, you can have transpiration. Once you've got your keywords, then you can formulate your answer. You're going to put each one into a sentence. Now, when you do these, you don't need to waffle. Honestly, you can write very short sentences, 4 of them, and you will get the mark. So let me give you an example. Water moves up the stem in a xylem vessel. 1 mark. It moves in one direction. It goes up. 2 marks. If you're going to use leaf, when it reaches the leaf, it exits the leaf through the stomata. 3 marks. The water evaporates from the stomata, or you can say the water moves by transpiration, or you can say this is transpiration. All right, so you've got options, but we're talking keywords, biology words, because they get biology marks. I know I keep saying it, but I'm going to keep saying it. Right, well done. So you might wonder how this water going in the roots actually kind of moves up, because it's just water. So why would it move up against gravity? So let's have a quick look. You don't need to know this in too much detail, but it's good to know because it kind of explains it a bit better. Right, so I'm going to do it on the diagram. The writing is here if you want it, but it's probably easier if I do it on here. So actually, the first stage is water evaporates from the leaf. Okay, so it comes out, evaporates out into the atmosphere. Now, much like when you suck the air out of a straw, the drink comes up the straw, it follows. It's similar. So we've taken water from the top. So that means water here is drawn up because there's a pressure difference. And it's drawn up here towards the leaf to replace the water that's evaporated. And then if this water here has been drawn up, then we're going to get more osmosis and more water coming up here to replace the water that's moved from here. So just once more, water evaporates, water's drawn up the stem because of the pressure difference, and then water's drawn in through the roots to replace the water in the stem. Okay, the writing is there if you'd like to pause the video and write it down, but I just wanted to explain to you how it happens. It makes a little bit more sense. Right, I hope you're all doing okay. Let's have a look at this next bit. What factors affect the rate of transpiration? There are 3 things that will either speed up or slow transpiration down. So feel free to pause the video and have a little go, and then we'll have a look at them. Right, let's have a look. So there's 3 things that you need to know about. 1, 2, 3. Wind. So if the wind is high, or we've got lots of wind, the higher the rate of evaporation. So I missed this word off, sorry. So higher transpiration. If you think about it, those little molecules of water leaving the leaf, they're going to be blown away. So more can evaporate. Temperature, the higher the rate of transpiration. Simply because if it's hotter, more is going to evaporate from the leaf. So more is going to be pulled up the stem. And humidity. Now, not everyone knows what this word means. Lots of people do if they've been abroad. That is the amount of water or moisture in the air. So if there's a lot of moisture in the air, a lot of water vapour in the air, we say it's humid. And if the air is already full of water, not much is going to be able to evaporate. So this is the only one that's going to lower the rate of transpiration. Okay, so make sure you know those three things. And I'm just going to show you a little experiment. It's called a potometer. There are different versions, but they all pretty much work the same. It's not a required practical, but it does come up quite a lot. So let's have a little look. This picture here is a potometer, okay? A bubble potometer, this one particularly, because it uses a bubble to measure. Now, we can't directly measure the rate of transpiration. The only way we would be able to do it directly is to put something over this plant and gather the water. Well, A, that's a bit difficult to do, and B, if you do that, the plant's going to get very distressed because it can't operate really if you've got a plastic bag on it or something. It's a bit tricky. So what we do, instead of measuring what comes out the leaves, we measure what goes in the roots, okay? So all we do is put our piece of cut plant here, and we've got a bung, so it's all sealed. And then this round here is all water. And this reservoir is just to refill it if it gets too low, so that's all that's for. And it's called a bubble potometer because we've got a bubble of air. This one's got a bubble of air, but sometimes they've got a little red bead in. Now, as that plant draws the water up and it's released out of the stomata, this bubble moves along. So we can measure, we can compare rates of transpiration. So let's imagine we did this and we left it for a day. And this moved from here to here, and whatever this scale is. And then we did the same thing, but we put a fan next to it to simulate wind. Now, remember, wind increases transpiration. So it may be that instead of just moving to here, it moves to here. So it's a way of measuring transpiration without actually measuring transpiration. It's so we can compare. Now, favourite ones are putting a fan there for wind, changing the plant, so a plant with different leaves, maybe bigger leaves, smaller leaves, or changing the temperature, okay? But be aware of this one because it does come up. Right, a couple of exam questions. Here we go. So this is an Edexcel question, but everyone can do it because it covers all of them. Water enters a plant through root hair cells. Root hair cells have, and then there's 4 options there. So have a go. A, B, C, or D. What's that I hear? C. Yes, well done. They have a large surface area. Got to get to my, where's my pen gone? Good. A large surface area and thin cell walls, so C. Explain how water in the root is transported to the leaves of the plant. So it's already in the root and we've got to get it to the leaves. Keywords, 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 because it's an explain. So you can pause me if you want, jot down a couple of keywords. It's 2 marks, so we need 2 keywords. Right, hopefully you've had a go. First keyword is transported in the xylem vessels. Woohoo, if you got that one. Well done. Second keyword, roots plant to the leaves. Upwards. Oops, press the wrong button, sorry. Upwards or transpiration. Okay, so for this one, xylem vessels and transpiration are the main keywords. Sometimes there's another mark for just the one direction going upwards. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back if you got all those right. Let's have a look at the next one. They do tend to repeat these, by the way. Right, this one's about mineral ions. Mineral ions are absorbed from the soil into the roots of plants. Describe how these mineral ions are transported from the roots to the leaves of the plant. Now, this is a different question, but pause the video. How do mineral ions get up the plant? Where do they go? Okay, let's have a think. So the mineral ions actually travel in the water. They're dissolved in the water. So it doesn't mention water in the question, so that will be a mark. Travel dissolved in water. In the xylem vessels. Okay, remember phloem are sugars when we're talking about mineral ions here. Right, well done if you got those two keywords. I think this is the final one. Right, the table shows the water uptake by a plant's roots on 2 different days. So this, they would have used a potometer for this. On a cold day, the plant took up 1.8 centimetre cubed. On a hot day, it took up 3.4 centimetre cubed. Explain why the mean rate of water uptake is higher on a hot day than on a cold day. Okay, so it's not asking us how it moves, it's asking us to explain those results. So pause me if you want to. It's 3 marks this one, so we need 3 words. Right, off we go. Now this is all about transpiration, okay? So explain why the mean rate of water uptake is higher on a hot day than a cold day. So on A, we're going to take the view of a hot day. We're going to take the view of a hot day here. So we get my pen in the right place. Yeah. So hot day. More evaporation from leaves. If there's more evaporation from leaves, then we're going to have a higher water uptake because more transpiration. Okay, so keywords: more evaporation from the leaves, so more or higher water uptake, and that means more transpiration because the water's leaving those leaves quicker, so it's going to be pulled up quicker. Okay, listen, give yourself another pat on the back if you got 3 of those keywords, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.